Welcome to the Unearthed Man Podcast, the journey to becoming a conscious man, hosted by Milvo. Hey all, Milvo here. Welcome to episode 13 of the Unearthed Man Podcast. So today, my topic, I'm going to talk about growth through discomfort and how we need to feel uncomfortable or have a level of discomfort to be able to grow. But before I get into that, what's been going on? So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, it's all been going great. Thank you everybody for jumping in. In addition, I've had another couple of men actually reach out and just jump on a call and start to talk about, what's happening in their life. So the episode off the back of Glenn Money last week, which was awesome. So thanks again, Glenn. I actually had a guy reach out and say, so I heard about the masks. What do we do to remove them? So it was good. Jumped on a call with him for an hour and just had a good conversation about some strategies that he could go through about removing the mask and simple things like some mirror work, just standing there in front of the mirror and actually just looking at yourself for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever you're comfortable with, because that's the whole thing. And we'll get into about discomfort as we move forward. But just look at yourself and just appreciate who you are. Have a look inside your eyes, not just who you are on the outside. But when you look in the mirror, look deep into your eyes, look into the back of your eyes, because that's where the true person that you are actually resides. And when you can look in that deep, the true person will start to come out and you can see beyond all the masks. So that was one little strategy. Another one was about how does he be grateful in any given day for the smaller things in life? So the crunch of an apple, the taste of an apple, or, when we're talking, he was getting ready to cook up some dinner. And so it's the other little simple things around, how about you be grateful for the farmer? So the farmer who is out there every day, whether it be sunshine, wind, rain, storm, he's caring to the potatoes that he's growing. And so if he's not doing that, then we don't get to have potatoes, roast potatoes, mashed potatoes as we would have on our plate. So there's just some really simple things around, first of all, just nice, easy mirror work. We all look in the mirror every day because most of us brush our hair, brush our teeth. So while you're brushing your teeth for that 2 or 3 minutes, just stand up straight. And while you got the toothbrush in your mouth, just pretty much look yourself in the eye and talk to yourself. And it's okay to talk to yourself. Just as a side point, I think someone said, and I can't remember what it was, that pretty much the only difference between an insane person and us is the insane person actually talks out loud to themselves, whereas we actually, talk inside to ourselves. So again, you might question who's the one with insanity. So and when you go through that, when that thought comes in that actually starts to pick up on something negative about you, something that you don't like or something you're not seeing, don't admonish the thought and don't feel bad about it. Just actually be thankful for the thought. So the thought comes in, it might be something about you carrying a bit of extra weight, or you're balding, or there is some feature that you don't like about yourself. As I said, rather than rejecting it and being upset with it, just say, thank you, thought, for coming in, and thanks for coming into my mind. I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but in this point in time, not today, thank you. I'm thankful that you popped up, but at the moment, I'm not accepting you as a valid thought, and I'm going to go back and continue to visit who I am. And you can just start to do that. And the more you do that, the more it can build on as you go forward. So that's probably one of the couple of key things that have been going on. The other thing, just as another side thing, sitting down here, getting ready to actually do my podcast and, welcome to home life and doing podcasting. Dog at the door, my beautiful wife's outside, and, son and daughter-in-law or future daughter-in-law downstairs. And here's the dog just scratching and barking at the door. Makes it rather hard to do a podcast when you got the dogs there. So hop up, bit of a feed of the dog, make sure he's happy, and then we can continue on. Before I get into the episode, the other thing that I actually want to do, and I'll actually make sure my daughter listens into this episode, because this is something I would never do. And this leads into that world of growth and discomfort. So this podcast will be launched on the 3rd of September. On the 3rd of September in 1997, my gorgeous daughter was born. So she's 23 years old on the day that this episode will go live. So I'd like to wish my beautiful, gorgeous daughter a very, very happy birthday. I hope you have a wonderful day. And this is where the discomfort's going to come in. And I'm going to sing. And you'll just need to tolerate what you feel is my level of tone deafness. So to you, Talia, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Talia. Happy birthday to you. So, Talia, I hope you have a beautiful, glorious day. Thank you for choosing me as your father. And I'm also very grateful that I chose you as my daughter, because as we've gone on our journey, there's been many, many times of love, happiness, joy, glee, laughter, but there's also been many times of discomfort. And it is through every one of those times of discomfort that I have been in a position to be able to grow into the person who I am now, grow into the person that I'll continue to be. You came into my life to help me learn, to help me grow, and help me learn the lessons that I need to learn whilst I'm here in my human skin suit, so that I can actually pick up those lessons and then take them on to wherever my next journey takes me. So, Talia, again, happy birthday. I love you dearly, and thank you for being a part of my life. So onto the topic, and as I said, I've touched on a few things there already. Discomfort, and our willingness in some cases not to feel uncomfortable. But this is the thing about it. We do not grow, and we cannot develop, and we cannot learn unless we actually choose to be uncomfortable and we choose to move into the world of discomfort. So a few times I've talked about fear, I've spoken about courage. This is the next step in relation to that. And I want to give you a few examples. So I will talk to the example with Talia in relation to discomfort. And I covered it off in my story. Talia has had some challenges in relation to mental health. And, we all go back and have a look at, why did that happen and where did it all come from? But that doesn't really matter. She's had some challenges. I never understood mental health. I never took the time to understand it. I always just thought, I was one of those people who go, come on, get out of bed, just get on, put a smile on your face and you'll be right. It wasn't until Talia, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, it wasn't until Talia actually attempted to leave this world, effectively commit suicide. And that really shook me. It shook me very, very deeply. I spent, while she was living at home, she was about 15, I spent the next 3 years living in discomfort, and I still do, in relation to that. And the first 3 years was actually me opening up her bedroom door ever so quietly so she didn't know I was doing it, just to make sure that, one, she was in bed, and two, she was breathing. And as soon as I saw that, I became the most happiest person. It helped ground me down to knowing that how precious life is and how much we have to be thankful for it. But it also taught me the lesson about how I had to change. It wasn't her that had to change. I had to change my belief system, my attitudes, my education, and my language, and everything that went with that. So I spent a lot of years, and to a degree I still am very uncomfortable in understanding mental health and how that works. But on that basis, because I'm dealing with a lot of beautiful men and a lot of beautiful people around me, what I've learned and the knowledge I've gained now, actually I believe does put me in a good position to continue to now provide that support and help to those men and to others who are generally struggling in the world of mental health. But if I hadn't stepped into the world of feeling uncomfortable or that world of discomfort, then I would never have grown. I wouldn't have grown my knowledge. I wouldn't have grown my compassion. I wouldn't have grown my empathy for those who are struggling in this space. And so from that point, I'm now in a position where I'm providing this beautiful service back to men where I'm here for them and I can actually have tools and techniques to help them now move beyond the life they have and move back to be who they are as the true people or the true person that they can actually be. The other areas that I want to touch on and I'm going to talk a bit about my experience and where I was. And it's interesting, it actually came up today in a conversation with my wife, more on how we view violence and not view violence. As again, I touched on in my story about myself, I took up boxing for pretty much 2 years. With the last 12 weeks of what I was doing with boxing actually resulted in me hopping in a boxing ring and actually having a fight. So I had a 3-round, 90-second per round fight with a 29-year-old. At that point in time, I was 49. And going through that process, there was a massive amount of discomfort, and I felt uncomfortable all the way through. If you think about the what people see at boxing is just two guys trying to beat up on each other. But the reality is there's a lot more strategy about boxing than just beating up on each other. And it's actually about, one, trying not to get hit yourself, and two, strategically working at your opponent's weaknesses so you can actually, where you can, take that opportunity and obviously hit them where you can. But there is nothing more uncomfortable, and I can absolutely guarantee you at this, there is nothing more uncomfortable than standing effectively across the ring from somebody with gloves on who actually just wants to hit you, who actually wants to win the fight by actually hitting you and hurting you. And on the other aspect, that's what you're in there to do. Now that challenges us on many, many levels to be able to stand in there and say, how do I take this on? How do I protect myself whilst also being in an attack mode? But the growth that came out of that, not just physically for me, because I basically dropped 8 odd kilograms. So what I learned about how I ate when I ate, how I trained when I trained, but the mental growth that came from that was immense, because I looked at a lot of my limiting self-beliefs about what I could or could not do, and actually realized that I could do anything. If I can go through and over a 12-week period train as if I'm a good amateur boxer, if not a professional boxer, and actually go through that rigor of training and run on treadmills, uphills, carrying weights, and realize that when I'm exhausted, I can actually do another kilometer. When I hop in the ring and you're doing some sparring and you get hit really hard, the easiest thing is to stop and go, I'm out. It's too hard. It's too uncomfortable. The hardest thing is to say, I understand that discomfort. I understand there's growth from this, and I can learn from this, and I can move forward. What it does do is it's built in me this constant ongoing level of resilience, where I can look back on that experience now and go, if I can do that, if I can actually stand there and train to that level and actually stand in front of a man 20 years my younger and be comfortable to actually hop in that fight and take him on, then there's where else am I feeling uncomfortable? And if I am feeling uncomfortable, why aren't I able to take that on? Why aren't I able to be in a position to move on from my level of discomfort, or actually step into that level of discomfort, because I know coming out the back end, that's where growth is actually going to come from. My other previous experience to this, and this is a challenge to all people, and I often hear this about it. In 2006, I'd set myself a goal to run a marathon before I turned 40. So I decided to do it in 2006 to give myself a year in case, a year gap in case something had popped up. So I went and trained over a 4 to 5 month period to run this marathon. And effectively every time I went and ran, I ran further than I'd actually run before. So when you get to, you go and do a 10K run, the next week you go and do an 11K run, then you go and do a 13K run. You're always moving to that next level. You're constantly not settling into a comfort zone of 10K. You're actually pushing yourself further and further. So I've heard people sort of say, I could never do that. And it's a really interesting languaging to actually say, I can never do that. Because the reality is anyone and everyone could do a marathon. Because there are people out there, Kurt Fernley, look him up. He's done Kokoda Trail. He's done marathons. There are people in wheelchairs that actually do them. There are people on one legs that have actually done them. So to say that you cannot actually do a marathon is you just putting your own self-belief on there, which is actually mean that you're not willing to move yourself into a level of discomfort. Because I can't is actually saying I don't want to become uncomfortable. So any and every time you sit there and go, I can't do this, what you're actually really saying is, I am not willing to move out of my comfort zone and to do something that's going to become uncomfortable for me to do because I just don't want to go there. And if that's what you want to do, then that's okay. There's been plenty of people who have actually done that. But if you really want to push yourself, every time you think about it, I can't. So when we get back to the marathon, I had to train. And rather than saying I can't, all I did was broke it down into, right, every time I go for a run, and I was running 4 times a week, every time I ran, it was like, I just need to move into that level of discomfort and become uncomfortable. And then that level became comfortable. And then you push it out further. And it was funny, I would go to work and someone would say to me, what are you doing on the weekend? I'm like, I'm just going to go for a 20K run. And they'd nearly fall off the chair, like, 20K? I don't go on holidays that far. And again, it was more of an indication of where they were at. Whereas for me, it was like 20K was a beautiful run. I can't remember, it was a couple of hours worth of running at a slower pace that I was doing. And it was just glorious. A 10K out, stop for a bit of a break, have your gels, and then a 10K back. It was an out and back circuit and it was beautiful. But it took a bit to get to that point. Now, at any point in time, I could have stopped, sore heels, blisters, sore legs, sore groins. It all adds up. But again, you have the choice. When the pain starts to kick in, all pain is discomfort. It's there to make you feel uncomfortable. And you can then make your choice as to what you decide to do next. Now, that reflects back into all aspects of our life. All aspects of our life. I could never go and get, people saying, I could never go and get my master's at university. Again, what you're saying is that you're not willing to put yourself into a level of discomfort because you might realize that there is stuff you don't know. Or you might find that it is actually hard to go and do. And that, or you might find, and this is where most people struggle with, is I may fail. And that's the one thing that people are not willing to move into that area of discomfort. The fear of failing is what stops most people being able to move forward. But here's the thing about it. What is failure? What was the failure? The fact that you went and tried something and failed, but you became uncomfortable in doing that. You've actually won. And this is again how we go about all our languaging. Because we feel that if I failed in something, the reality is you passed and you actually already won that test. Because to have failed, you had to have tried. And to have tried, you've had to have been willing to become uncomfortable. And taking that step is the first enormous step. That could be as simple, that could be as hard as someone actually leaving their house, literally getting up and walking out the front door. Now, the first time they get it, they may actually go to the door and not be able to walk out. Again, you have the choice. Do you see that as a failure or do you see that as a win? Because there was already discomfort required to stand up and even get to the door, let alone walk out the door. That can come next week. So there are just simple little subtle things that we can actually do along the way that actually enables us to actually grow. And that's ultimately what we're here for. I'm going to give an analogy. Well, it's actually not an analogy, sorry. I'm actually going to talk about what happens in real life with a lobster. And this story I've seen a couple of times. I've read it in one of the books I've been reading, and I've actually also, a friend of mine sent me through this YouTube video. So, first of all, let's put it in context. Lobsters have been here since the dinosaurs, so millions of years. So, they know how to live. Us humans, very, very new on the planet and how we operate. Lobsters have been around for a long period of time. But have a look at a lobster. A lobster, to grow, has to shed its shell. So how a lobster goes along? the lobster starts to grow. Then what happens is that to take the next step on its growth, it starts to feel uncomfortable. What it feels uncomfortable about is it's constrained by the current shell that it's in. So it has a choice. I could not grow, but that's not a great idea because the smaller you are as a lobster, the easier you are to become prey for fish. When you become a bigger lobster, then it's chance. So they become uncomfortable. In becoming uncomfortable, they then realize they have to shed their shell or a mask or whatever that hard thing is you got on the outside of you that's actually saying, I don't want to get rid of it. So the lobster then goes down, finds a place it can hide because it knows it's about to become vulnerable, sheds its shell, and spends a period of time actually being vulnerable. But while it's being vulnerable, it's then growing, and its new shell actually comes on top of it, and it gets hard, and then it can venture back out again. Until 12 months down the track or whatever it is, then it starts to feel uncomfortable again. And it's through that discomfort it knows that it has to go through the process of shedding its shell. And that process is continual growth. As it continually grows, it realizes that it's becoming uncomfortable through the growth, and as a result, it sheds its shell. In our term, our self-beliefs, our limiting beliefs, sheds it because it becomes uncomfortable, and then there's another new shell can then grow. And that's how it goes through its cycle over and over again. So, as I said, there's a couple of aspects on that. One, it knows that once it becomes uncomfortable, that it's ready to grow. And that's what we're about. We can only grow if we actually start to become super uncomfortable about how we're operating. Because as soon as we become uncomfortable, or for us to grow, we have to be willing to become uncomfortable and start to move into that space. This podcast, it's probably another example of, I do it. I have a certain amount of listeners that tune in every week, which is fantastic. And I think I've mentioned this before. I'm not by far nowhere near a top rating. There's another beautiful guy I'm going to get on the podcast, Mikey Ellis. And I've just seen recently, I celebrated 500 downloads. Mikey's just celebrated 2,000. And that is fucking awesome. Because Mikey's got a wider range than me. And that's fine. Now, I have a choice now, right? That makes me feel uncomfortable. So, fuck, Mikey's got 2,000. I've only got 500. What does that actually mean? But I can sit there and go, okay, it means I've got to grow. It means I've got to actually start to do maybe something different with my podcast. Maybe I have to start to promote it differently. Maybe I have to try and start to push out harder into a different audience space if I'm really interested in getting more downloads. But that's the area that I have to start to move into, to say, well, if I want to do that, then that's my area of discomfort if it's actually got to do with how I'm going to operate. And I think that probably is getting close to wrapping up the conversation I wanted to have in relation to just feeling uncomfortable. As I said, there's many times in our life where we go along the path that we go along. We have a choice. And people keep saying, in some cases, I don't have a choice. But you do actually have a choice. You have a choice about how you see something. You have a choice about how you talk about something and the language that you also use when you're talking about it. I'll jump to another example. It just pops in my mind. I've been doing this wonderful meditation course with Sam Lewis, and we talk about finding the heart space. And there's another guy also doing it, and we jump on an app called Marco Polo, and we talk about our experiences. And I was using the word, I can't find my heart space. I can't see the cave. I can't find the tunnel. I can't do this. And the other guy was jumping on saying, I can't do the manifestation. I get to this point. I'm resisting this. I'm resisting this. And the really interesting thing is that our own language is determining the fact that we're not willing to make the choice to become uncomfortable. So both our situations, our ego is still sitting there trying to protect us. Our ego is not allowing us to just relax, surrender, and give into the process. And by relaxing and surrendering into the process, which is actually surrendering to the fact that we're about to become uncomfortable and that we're going to go through a level of discomfort through our meditation, then the magic will start to happen. So again, it's a bit about, when we talk about the choice, it's the choice about what language are you using when you talk to yourself? What language are you using around others? You could start to change your language rather than I can't to I may try, or I'm having challenges with doing this. Can you give me some ideas? And start to talk in this next beautiful language about how you actually are traveling. Talk about this language more of a, as I said, not what I can or can't do, but a bit about what do I need to do? And then start to think about whereabouts are you not seeking discomfort? Whereabouts in your life are you seeing this beautiful, comfortable, safe space? And where in your life are you sitting in your comfortable space, but you're having a crack at those who may be actually willing to go out there and sit in their level of discomfort? Often we look at people and we have a crack at them because it looks like they've failed, or it looks like they're doing something that they wouldn't do it. In a lot of situations, what's really happening is that we're feeling maybe bad about ourselves, or a trigger about ourselves because they're doing something that we wish we could. So I think that's the key message. Again, to my beautiful daughter, hope you have a wonderful, happy birthday. Thank you for being part of my life. Thank you for making me uncomfortable. Thank you for putting me into areas of discomfort on a very regular basis, because that's enabled me to grow into who I am. Thank you for everybody who, again, is listening in. Thank you for those people who reach out and ask questions, because, again, me questioning myself and having to do more research and learning more about how people operate is moving me to a level of discomfort, and I'm enjoying that as well. So I'm going to sign off here. I would love to wish everyone to have a wonderful, beautiful week. The episode next week is going to have Seth Slade, a beautiful Samoan guy who is a lot about ceremony, a lot about family, and we get into some beautiful, wonderful conversations. So that's it for me. That's wraps up episode 13. So from the Unearthed Man, or from myself to all of you, sending you much love and care, and enjoy. Peace out.